with a map and a plan. No place too tiny for this determined man. Crossing the counties one by one, he'll see in every English corner a bit of history.
Welcome back to Ryedale again, everybody. Now today I'm beginning on a parish boundary, or close to a parish boundary, and that's kind of ideal in this place because this village and the one that's down there are kind of intertwined with each other in so many different ways. They share a parish council even. We'll be talking about the one that's down there tomorrow, but today we're talking about the one that's currently behind the camera, and that would be Claxton. Claxton, Clax Farm. For your Wednesday episode this week, now deep in the North Yorkshire countryside, we come to the tiny village of Claxton. This should not be confused with Flaxton. It is after all only a one-letter difference, and the two villages aren't all that far apart. Whilst Flaxton has things like a pub, a huge green and a railway line, Claxton has nowhere near the same. Tied to nearby Sandhutton for its parish council, the village is 8 miles away from York via the A64, and should you venture that distance from the city, you'll find a peaceful rural oasis here. The village is mentioned twice in the Domesday Book, both times as Claxtorp. It was in the Bulford 100. The origin of the village name is uncertain. It could be from an Old Norse name, probably Clack, but equally it could also come from an ancient English word. In that context, Clack means hill or peak. It's not greatly built up. Indeed, census data from 2001 tells us that Claxton had at that time just 102 houses. It's certainly not gained many more in the 24 years that have passed since. Religiously, there's no church in Claxton, although it once had 2 chapels. There was a Wesleyan one built in 1842 and a primitive one too, built in 1850. Both fell out of use some time ago. It's a linear village too, meaning practically everything of note here lies upon one straight lane. Its name is Main Street, and it connects the A64 to the village of Sandhutton immediately to the south. Keep in mind for tomorrow's episode as well, Claxton used to have a railway line running to it. There's more on that though in 24 hours. Let's explore Claxton first. Walk time. Claxton is an ancient village founded way back in Saxon times, or maybe even before. When the Saxons walked the lands around here, Claxton's manor was split between 3 of them, Lygulf, Arngar and Gospatrick. After the Norman conquest, the parts of the manor were passed to the crown and Count Robert of Mortain, who made Nigel Fossard the lord of the manor. Some land was gifted to St Mary's Abbey until the dissolution, when it was then granted to Thomas Bamborough of Foston. It was held by the family until 1857, when it became the property of Sandhutton's lord of the manor. Today, Claxton Village is undoubtedly one of the most sought-after little communities anyone could possibly live in. Located just a few miles from York and with good transport connections thanks to the A64, it's hard to understand why this village hasn't seen a glut of brand new housing estates before now. Far be it from me to tempt fate, but I'm happy it hasn't happened. Claxton is a rural idyll and one of North Yorkshire's best. For countless years it's been linked to Sandhutton, which is the next village over to the south. Between them both, farming has been the main economic driver. Both were mentioned in the Domesday Book, and they have evidence of activity from the Viking era onwards. They have a very long history of cooperation and a mutually supportive existence. Long may that continue. Sandhutton probably is the one that's better known, but it has its reasons and we'll discover those tomorrow. The two villages are similar in size in terms of their number and of households, although housing in Claxton is more dense, with properties concentrated in the main street, Winnie Lane and Green Hills. The villages are separated by a stretch of unrestricted road about a mile in length, which unfortunately creates something of a gulf between the two. The gap is rather difficult to bridge without driving there because there's no footpath. A handful of busy farms surround the villages, with much of the land in these parts owned by the church commissioners. It's mostly arable land, with a minority used for livestock. Tenant farmers have also diversified into market gardening, livery stabling and touring caravan parks, the sort of thing found commonly across rural North Yorkshire. On a clear day, the Yorkshire Wolds and the North York Moors are visible from the higher spots around Claxton, whilst the local countryside offers many beautiful trees and woodlands. The central, older parts of both Claxton and Sandhutton are designated conservation areas. It should perhaps come as no surprise to learn that the majority of Claxton's residents are middle-aged or older. There are no shops, pubs or other commercial services here, and by the way, the same can be said for Sandhutton. Stamford Bridge is the nearest village which has most everyday services. The kicker is, though, Claxton has no public transport service to Stamford Bridge, so most people who live here go to Malton or York via a limited bus service at peak times. So Claxton is essentially just a group of houses all laid out along one road, with the exception of those on Winnie Lane and Green Hills. There was, though, at one time a bit more than just residential property here. Claxton had two Methodist chapels, one for the Wesleyans, the other for the Primitives. This here is the former Primitive Chapel, which was built in 1850. This delightful building was converted into a house at some point prior to 2014, but it's not known with any certainty when this closed as a place of worship. The Wesleyan chapel dated from 1842, and it also fell out of use a long time ago now. It's gorgeous now that sun's got up, isn't it? And you know what? Claxton's a gorgeous village to go with the weather. Now, it's a very simple village to walk around. Most of it is on that main village street, with the exception of a couple of bits which I'm going to show you in a few moments' time. Now, where the road becomes like a crossroads at the northern end of the village, you'll find this beautiful village green. If you go on the parish council's website, you'll see a picture of what this green used to be several years ago. No need to do that though, really, because I'm about to tell you. At the top of the village, close to the only junction where Main Street meets Winnie Lane, is the most gorgeous village green. Now, of course, this hasn't always been what it is now. Claxton used to be an East Riding village, and as we know, a lot of those had their own water supply in the form of a mere. That's exactly what this green used to be. This was a mere, or village pond if you like, and it was filled in sometime in the mid-20th century, becoming the awesome village green it is today. Claxton still has a watery feature, although it's not in the main village. West of the village is a small area of woodland that surrounds Claxton Pond. It's an old clay pit that measures between 1 and 2 acres and has lush growths of lilies in the summer months. It's a popular spot for fishermen, so that's one for all you rod wielders out there. Now here's a bit about Claxton Hall. That is set away from the main village on the northern side of the A64. Its design suggests an early 18th century house, stuccoed and altered in the early 19th century. A History of York, published in 1859, stated that Claxton Hall had, since 1851, been a private lunatic asylum under the stewardship of Mr. John Jackson. It was licensed for 26 patients. By 1872, it was described as the seat of Frederick James Walker, the second son of James Walker, who had moved to Sandhutton Hall in about 1840. Following World War I, the hall was occupied by Sir Archibald and Lady White, and then regularly seen by army officers for hiring, initially from the Walker family, and then the church commissioners from 1936. In 1943, the hall was an overflow for York Military Hospital and remained as such until 1947, when it reverted to being the Army Commander's residence. Water for the house, by the way, came from a reservoir north of Claxton and was piped to it via a windmill-driven pump. In 1985, Newitts, a well-known York sports shop, moved their headquarters to Claxton Hall and built large warehouses around it, totalling some 60,000 square feet in all. In the year 2000, Newitts were the largest mail-order supplier of sports equipment in the UK, employing 35 people. They were founded in 1902 with no outside shareholders, beginning as a small leather shop in the centre of York. Between the wars, they diversified by selling other sports equipment, leading to their eventual purchase of Claxton Hall. So that's really all there is to Claxton, just those 3 streets, more than anything else. Now this road here, which passes Green Hills, you can get to Sandhutton this way, and that's the way we are possibly going to go. I haven't quite decided yet to the next one. Might be able to hear the A64 in the background. That episode will start close to the A64 with something that's definitely not village-like. Now, interestingly, between here and the A64, at the moment, there's something called the bird flu control zone. I best not go into that. I've got no idea what that means. I know what bird flu is, but control zone? Interesting. Not quite sure what that's all about. The end of the control zone's up here. There's another sign up there which tells you that the end of it is just along there. I better not go too far down there, quite frankly. I never know what I'm going to catch. And on the walk back to the car, there's just one final job to do here in Claxton, and that's leave one of my cards on the notice board. So let's do that. There we go. Claxton is done. Time to move on to its near neighbour. Folks, as I was writing this one, I definitely had more than a few moments when I thought I might go off at a tangent. Because Claxton and Sandhutton are so similar, a lot of what I've written here could well be repeated in the next episode. That said, Sandhutton has a few things which make it special. Get ready for a brilliant little bit of railway history tomorrow, not something you'd expect from a village so deep within Ryedale. Now, just before I go, remember, this video is part of a huge project to visit every civil parish in England. That's more than 10,000. These routes are pre-planned, and due to time constraints, I can't cover every detail or walk down every street. Please don't complain if this video missed something out. I pronounce names how I choose to. I am very aware that local dialect may vary, and I don't take kindly to criticism about this. You've been warned. It's impossible to know everything too. If this video was terrible, make your own. If you're a regular watcher of The Village Idiot, you're not the only one. If you've got a small business, why not use my videos to advertise it? Leave a comment below if you're interested. And finally, thanks for watching this episode, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe if you've enjoyed this episode, and share it with your friends and relatives. It all helps to keep this mission going. Until next time, I've been Andy, also known as The Village Idiot, and I'm out.